Hey everyone, before we get started with this video, I just want to let everybody know that has a VR headset if they're tired of the plain white, or if they're tired of the strap that has the elastic straps. Well, I'm an affiliate with Ruckup, and right now we're going to go visit their shop for a brief second. But if you are tired of the plain white, they have decals and they have the head straps, as you can see. Ruckup. We're going to go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description down below, a QR code if you guys want to scan it. And if you use promo code RAMIGTV, you'll get a 10% discount on your purchase. So let's go check it out. So right now we're here at Ruckup VR Accessories. So basically they sell everything from these gun mods that you can put on your controller, the head strap, and hundreds of decals. Excuse me. So basically it's all these stuff, and for the pistol accessories you can actually feel the recoil. And we're going to go into the decals. You have all these white selections that you want. There's some that you can actually put your gamer tag, your name. There's a bunch of different eyes. There's a typical sayings. There's eyes. There's ooh eyes. There's all these sad faces. Everything from whatever you can think of. And literally right now the one that I got, it's right here, the evil pumpkin. So thank you, Ruckup, for being my first affiliate. Also, if you like reading scary stories like I do, I want you to go check out this app called Horrorville. It's a very new app that's barely up and coming. I'll leave a link in the description down below for some scary stories. They have a great selection of scary stories, and they're going to be adding more, so go check the app out if you're brave enough. Warning: the following video contains disturbing material that may be inappropriate for younger viewers. Parental discretion is advised. It was a nice summer's day. My 5-year-old son James was playing outside in the backyard of our suburban home. James has always been a quiet boy. He plays by himself mostly. He never had many friends, but he has always had a wild imagination. I was in the kitchen feeding our dog Fido when I heard what sounded like James talking to someone in the backyard. I'm not sure who it was he could be talking to. Could he have finally made a friend? Being a single mom, it's always hard for me to keep an eye on my son. So I decided to go outside and check on him. When I went to the backyard, I was a bit confused because James was the only person there. Was he talking to himself? I could have sworn I heard another voice. "James, it's time to come inside." I called to him. He came inside and sat down at the kitchen table. It was about lunchtime, so I decided to make him a turkey sandwich. "James, who were you talking to out there?" I asked. James looked up for a moment. "I was playing with my new friend," he said, smiling. I poured him some milk and continued to pry, as any good mother would. "Does your friend have a name? Why didn't you ask if he wanted to have lunch with us?" James stared at me for a moment before replying. "His name is Laughing Jack." I was a bit taken back by what he said. "Oh, that's a strange name. What does your friend look like?" I asked, a bit confused. "He's a clown. He has long hair and a big swirly cone nose. He's got long arms and baggy pants with stripy socks. And he's always smiling." I realized my son was talking about an imaginary friend. I suppose it's normal for a kid his age to have imaginary friends, especially when he has no real kids to play with. It's probably just a phase. The rest of the day went on as per usual, and it was starting to get late, so I put James to bed. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and made sure I turned on his nightlight before I closed the door. I was pretty tired myself, so I decided to go to bed not long after. I had an awful nightmare. It was dark. I was in some kind of run-down amusement park. I was scared, running through the endless fields of empty tents, broken down rides, and abandoned game huts. The whole place had a horrible look to it. Everything was black and white. The prized stuffed animals all hung from nooses in the game huts, all with sick grins stitched on their faces. It felt like the whole park was looking at me, even though there was no other living thing in sight. Then, suddenly, I began to hear music play. The sounds of Pop Goes the Weasel being played on squeeze boxes echoing throughout the park. It was hypnotizing. I followed its tune to the circus tent, almost in a trance, unable to stop my legs from moving forward. It was pitch black. The only light came from a single spotlight shining in the center of the big top. As I walked towards the light, the music slowed down. I found myself singing along, unable to stop. The music stopped right before the climax, and suddenly the lights shot on. The intensity of the lights were particularly blinding. All I could see was a small dark silhouette shuffling towards me. Then another one appeared, and another one, and another. There were dozens of them, all coming towards me. I couldn't move, my legs were frozen. All I could do was watch as the haunting figures drew nearer. As they got closer, I could see they were children. As I looked at each one, I noticed they were all horribly disfigured and mutilated. Some had cuts all over their bodies. Others were severely burnt, and others were missing limbs, even eyes. The children enveloped me, crawling on my flesh, dragging me down to the ground, and tearing inside me. All the children tore me apart, and I faded away. All I could hear was laughter. Horrible, awful, evil laughter. I woke up the next morning in a cold sweat. After taking a few deep breaths, I looked over and saw that a few of James' action figures were positioned facing me on the nightstand. I sighed. James had probably woken up early and put them there. I gathered up the toys and made my way to James's room. However, when I opened the door, James was sound asleep. I just shrugged and placed the toys back in his toy box and headed out to the living room. A little while later, James woke up and I made him breakfast. He was quiet and seemed a bit groggy. Perhaps he didn't sleep well either. I decided to ask him about the toys. James, honey, did you put the toys in Mommy's room this morning? His eyes shot up at me for a moment, then quickly glanced down back at his cereal. Laughing Jack did it. I rolled my eyes in response. Well, you tell Laughing Jack to keep the toys in your room. James nodded and finished his breakfast, then decided to go play outside in the backyard. I went to relax in the living room, and I must have dozed off. I woke up a couple of hours later. I need to check on James. I was a bit worried. It had been over 2 hours and I haven't checked in on him. I went and stepped outside to the backyard, but James wasn't there anymore. I was getting nervous, so I called out for him. James, where are you? Just then, I heard a giggle come from the front yard. I rushed to the gate around the front of the house. James was sitting on the sidewalk. I breathed a sigh of relief and walked over to him. James, how many times have I told you to stay in the back? James, what are you eating? James looked up at me, then reached in his pocket and pulled out a handful of candies in all colors. This made me very nervous. James, who gave you that candy? James just stared at me, not speaking. James, please tell me where you got that candy. James tugged his head down and said, Laughing Jack gave it to me. My heart sank. James, I've had enough of this damn Laughing Jack. He's not real. Now, this is a very serious situation, and I need to know who gave you that candy. I could see my son's eyes tear up. But Mom, Laughing Jack did give me the candy. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. James has never lied to me, but what he's telling me is impossible. I make him spit out the candy and throw the rest away. James appears to be fine. Maybe I'm just overreacting. He could have gotten the candy from Tom and Linda from next door, or Mr. Walker down the street. Either way, I'm gonna have to keep a closer eye on James. That night, I put James to bed as usual and decided to go to bed early myself. Suddenly, I was woken up by a loud bang coming from the kitchen. I sprung out of bed and hurried down the stairs. When I got to the kitchen, I was horrified. Everything on the counter had been thrown to the floor, and our dog Fido hung dead from the light fixtures. His stomach was cut open and stuffed with candy, the same type that James was eating earlier. My shock was quickly broken by a sharp scream coming from James's room, followed by loud crashes. I quickly grabbed a knife from the drawer and moved up the stairs with the speed that only a mother whose child is in danger could have. I burst through the door and flicked on the lights. Everything in the room was knocked over and tossed on the floor. My poor son in his bed crying and shaking with fear, a pool of urine staining the sheets. I scooped my son up and ran out of the house. I went next door to Tom and Linda's house. Luckily, they were still awake. They let me use their phone and I called the police. It didn't take them very long to arrive, and I explained to them what happened. They looked at me as if I was crazy. They searched the house, but all they found was the dead dog and 2 trashed rooms. The officer had told me that somebody probably got into the house and done this right before making a quick escape. Then they heard me coming upstairs. I knew it wasn't true. All the doors were locked and none of the windows were open. Whatever was in my house didn't come from outside. The next day, James stayed inside. I didn't want him to leave my sight. I went out into the garage and found an old baby monitor and set it up in his room. If anything comes into it tonight, I was going to be able to hear it. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the largest kitchen knife in the drawer and put it right on my nightstand. Imaginary friend or not, I'm not letting anything hurt my little boy. Soon enough, night came. I put James to bed. He was afraid, but I promised him that I wasn't going to let anything happen to him. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and turned on his nightlight before closing the door. I whispered to him, "Good night, James. I love you." I tried to stay up as long as I could, but after a few hours, I felt myself drifting off. My baby would be safe for the night and I needed to sleep. Just as I laid my head on the pillow, I heard a soft noise come from the baby monitor I had put on my nightstand. At first, it sounded like interference, like the kind a radio would make. Then it turned into a soft moan. Was James asleep? Then I heard it. The laughing from my nightmare. The horrible laugh. I sprung up from bed and grabbed the knife from under my pillow. I rushed over to James's room and creaked the door open. I tried the light switch, but nothing would come on. I took a step and I could feel warm, thick liquid at my feet. Suddenly, James's nightlight came on, and I could see the absolute horror laid out in front of me. James's body was nailed to the wall, the nails piercing through his hands and feet. His chest was cut wide open, and his organs hung down to the floor. His eyes and tongue had been removed, along with most of his teeth. I was disgusted. I could hardly believe this was my baby boy. Then, I heard it again. The soft, desperate moan. James is still alive. My baby, my poor baby. In so much pain, barely clinging to life, I ran across the room and vomited on the floor. But my sickness was interrupted by a horrible cackle coming from behind me. I sprung around while still wiping bile from my mouth. Then, out of the shadows, emerged the fiend responsible for all the horror. Laughing Jack. His ghost white skin and matted black hair hung down to his shoulders. He had piercing white eyes surrounded by dark black rings. His twisted smile revealing a row of sharp, jagged teeth. And his skin didn't look like skin at all. It almost looked like rubber or plastic. He wore a patchy black and white clown outfit with striped sleeves and socks. His body itself was grotesque, his long arms hanging down past his waist, and the way he was poised made him look almost boneless, like a rag doll. He let out a sickening laugh, as if to let me know he was pleased with my reaction on his work. He then turned around slowly in front of James and began to laugh even more at the horrific sight he has laid out. That was enough to shake me from my terror. I snapped, "Get away from my son, you bastard." I rushed at the monster, raising the knife above my head and stabbed down at him. But as soon as the knife touched him, he disappeared into a cloud of black smoke. The knife passed right through and pierced James's still beating heart, splashing the warm blood on my face. No. What have I done? My baby, I killed my baby. I immediately fell to my knees, and I could hear sirens in the distance, growing louder. My boy, my sweet baby boy. I promised mommy would protect you, but I failed. I'm sorry, James. I'm so sorry. Police soon arrived to finding me in front of my son, still wielding the knife, covered in my baby's blood. The trial was short. Insanity. I was placed in a house for the criminally insane, where I have been for the past 2 months. It's not so bad here. The only reason I wake up now is because someone keeps playing Pop Goes the Weasel outside my window. I'll talk to the orderlies about it in the morning. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Also, let me know in the comments below, who was your favorite creepypasta? Maybe I can do it for the next episode. Also, don't forget to go and check out the Ruck Up shop, and don't forget to install that Horrorville. Both of the links will be in the description down below. Until next time, guys, sweet dreams.